So, Tacticooler, you know the drill at this point. Pencil's a dominant cooler weapon. And, we got 30 new kits, and we added new cooler options. And now we're about 2 months since that update, where we can successfully say, we didn't even get close to dethroning this thing. I mean, there's more options now. It's definitely a little better, but, this thing is dying until it gets cheaper points for special. This one's got good cooler output. It's just not really that worth it to have, a dart on your support. And so, for the most part, not really much success in changing Pencil. On top of that, obviously, 30 weapons got new kits, and as far as we know, fourth kits are not a thing I would ever expect to happen, so any weapon that got a third kit is off the table. That means if we get any more kits, is there a weapon that does not have a third kit that could potentially dethrone Pencil? And I mean, the candidate list is overall not looking too promising. There's not really many weapons that have a chance of really doing this. I don't think any of the shooters have a chance. I don't think any of the rollers have a chance. I don't think any of the chargers have a chance. Maybe X-Splosher could be there, but X-Splosher's been geared pretty fight heavy. It already has a lot of pain and ink efficiency nerfs, and it's very dependent on combat. So that's not looking the most likely by any means. Splatlings, I mean, you could see something like Ballpoint getting it in the future, but we already have Edit Splatling, and I don't think it'd be too different from Edit. In fact, Edit's probably the better one out of all of these. So I'm not sure if there's anything there. There's not really any dually that could be a cooler weapon other than Dowser, but Dowser's cooler output is frankly quite low at this point, so unless if Dowsers were buffed, I don't really see that being a viable option. We're just going to skip over the Brellas, because let's be honest with ourselves. Blasters got their best candidate. Brushes, I don't think really any brush would be an amazing cooler option. It would be like a niche option at best. Splatanas only have, a mint to get their third kit. I don't think that'd be a real candidate here. Which leaves one weapon remaining. And that's Wellstring. Now, out of all the weapons in the game that are the most held back by their kits, this is probably number one on the list. Wellstring's history in competitive has been, the weapon got released, and then this version of it got second place in an area cup. Showed some promise for breaking squeezer wall, had some pretty good long range paint. Okay, maybe this has a chance. And that's it. That's it for Wellstring. Other than seeing use in some Rainmaker tournaments because it pops the shield fast. That's it. And they nerfed its paint by 8%. So, that's all we've seen of this weapon. But there has been a good bit of speculation on this weapon, because I think, for the most part, I think that this weapon is seen as pretty strong. I mean, it's got a relatively, solid range one-shot. It's a bit hard to hit, but you have, almost, about 3 lines of range for a potential one-tap. You have insanely high object damage. Obviously with a bit of a range disadvantage, but even doing this will, shred bubble. Definitely the best weapon at shredding bubble. It does good Booyah damage, it does good crab damage, solid. Solid object damage. And it has very good AoE. This is a very large, consistent hitbox, and it has a good damage number. Deals 30 or 35 damage, depending on the type of hit you do, which very easily works off other meta options. We have a lot of 70 damage weapons in the game. This definitely works with a lot of them. And, it's kind of like Pencil in the fact that it's an anchor that can paint pretty well. Obviously, it's not going to paint lines like Pencil can. But it does still, even after the patch, paint pretty well. I don't know if I'd say this is really better or worse than Pencil. I think its ink efficiency is actually a little bit better. But it's comparable. It's comparable in paint value. And again, it's an anchor weapon. It can go for long distance kills, even if this is more inconsistent. Compared to Pencil, I'd say Pencil definitely, obviously outside of the range disadvantage, is going to be winning direct fights with this weapon. It's going to control more open space. Wellstring kind of has to play kind of like Explo would, where it stays behind cover in order to poke people. But I don't think it's really going to be a huge threat to Pencil in terms of being able to take it out solo. So comps around this weapon would definitely need other ways of contesting Pencil, probably being something like Crab. I do think this weapon is a bit better at moving forward than Pencil, even with as good as Pencil players have gotten. Having access to this kind of one-shot capabilities, or, having the kill time being even more lenient if you have some small damage on the opponent, I think is definitely better. This weapon is heavyweight, though, so it does require a little bit more gear to get around that problem. However, I think that Wellstring would be insanely good at uptime. I think one of the main things for Wellstring is that its special output is really good, and its ink efficiency is really good. I think you have like 10 shots on this weapon normally, 10 or 11 shots, and it stacks pretty well with any sort of main saver or last ditch effort, and it also has no whiting frames. You know, when we talked about Expo earlier, this is really the comparison that I'd say makes Wellstring the much better cooler weapon candidate. Expo has a lot more downtime. This weapon's pretty consistently going to be putting turf and damage on the floor, so it's going to get plenty of cooler output. The other thing that I think makes it better is its lack of sub dependency. Wellstring really doesn't have any sub that would be like a deal breaker for it. I would say it definitely does best having some form of damage or location option to help with it, or a paint tool. So, for example, Sprinkler could help it get more Tacticoolers. Something like Ink Mine could help it defend itself if it gets rushed down. Stuff like that. But for the most part, I don't think it's too sub-dependent. So as long as it manages to roll a Tacticooler, I don't see a real big problem there. But the real question I have, though, is, like, how real actually is this weapon? Because a lot of this talk is just theory crafting, because we haven't really seen how a Wellstring would play with a good kit. Currently, the way Wellstring has to play around these weaker kits isn't as strong. It's not bad by any means. Like, it's still a totally usable weapon as two solid kits, all things considered, like when paired with the main weapon strength. But how would it actually play when it has a special that's valuable is a whole nother story. And that's something we'd really have to wait and see. But for the most part, like, I don't know how well this weapon's going to be able to, like, long-range snipe people, how consistently it's going to be able to one-tap, how relevant its object damage is going to be, or what gear it could really run to be most optimal. But I am curious. Do I think it would be better than Pencil? Maybe. I think probably not, if I'm being honest. I think Pencil has the long-distance pressure as kind of the main factor. I feel like Wellstring comps will have to deal with that, and that's a little bit more of a downside. Maybe it wouldn't be that hard to deal with it, but I think it probably would be a bit of an issue. And mainly, I think just not having a main weapon that can contest Pencil at that long a range, I think could be a problem. But, I don't know, it's very theoretical, of course, so I could be wrong about that. And it could also just be that Wellstring being more flexible and faster could make it easier for comps to deal with Pencil. But that's also what we said about Rapid Blaster, and that didn't really work out. Though, maybe that was a cooler output issue, who knows. But really, I'd honestly like to see it. I would say that Wellstring is the weapon that right now I am most curious what it gets for a third kit. It doesn't have to be a cooler kit, obviously. I think any good third kit for the weapon would make it interesting. But I have to say that if there's any, like, kit hope I have right now, Wellstring with Tacticooler would probably be number one on that list. Because I really do think this is the weapon that has the best chance of contesting Pencil, and hopefully we'll get to see that happen sometime soon. I hope we see more third kits, and I hope they do something cool with this weapon, because bows deserve to have something in the spotlight. The other two got better kits, so hopefully this one will follow suit. Thanks for watching.